Hey, and good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Weather Nerds YouTube channel here on your October 15th for the Weather Report, your no nonsense, giving it to you straight without all that social media hype. We got enough of that in the world, and we don't need any kind of weather anxiety that's just going to drive us crazy. We give it to you straight here. We keep you prepared and not scared. That's our motto. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And as always, if you ever have a weather-related question, please leave a comment down below and give me a thumbs up. It does help with that little thing called the YouTube algorithm. That algorithm is very stingy too, by the way. It doesn't like what we're selling, but that's okay as long as you appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what our hot for our highs and lows yesterday. Rio Grande Village was our hot spot yesterday at 97 degrees down there, and then you have to go up to Swan Lake up in Montana, 15 degrees up there. So a bit chilly. Watching the storm system, boy, they had some active weather in Los Angeles yesterday. I was talking to my daughter. She's heavy rain, had some severe thunderstorm watches out there, had several severe thunderstorm warnings through the metro area. It was just kind of crazy as that low moves up to the north there. And that energy is going to kind of shift up into Canada. And then the tail edge front is going to have another surge of energy. It's going to set off some potential severe weather coming out of the Rockies into the plains and into parts of the southeast as we go into the Saturday. So we're kind of making that transition going into what we refer to sometimes as the secondary severe weather season. That kind of happens in the fall months. It's not nearly as bad as in the spring months, but you still got to be on guard and be prepared for that in case something comes your way. So let's go look at your surface map here as we've got a cold front here across the northeast, bringing some rains here across the Great Lakes there. Not bad, very nice here across the southeast. It's been pretty cool. I've had some nice, cool, comfortable mornings, but pretty warm afternoons. Very summer-like still with the temperatures here across the south central plains. Here comes that energy out of the coming out of Nevada and Utah, going up into there. Got some pretty good rains across Utah. I'm going to show you here in a second as well as this moves northward. But not seeing any real big cold snaps yet. The models have been trying to bring it on down, but nothing there imminent. And as a result, the overall trend here for the month is really above normal, except for the west, where it continues to stay below normal here, at least for a little while. And I'll give you the latest climate outlook here in a second as well. So I'm going to talk about some of that rain there. Here's some of that rain coming in here across Utah here. There's Salt Lake City there. So just kind of moving up from north to south there. Some pretty good downpours across that area as that'll continue to move northward. And some mountains, higher mountain snows as well. That'll be there as well. Looking at your national look here a little bit. Again, you see some of the snows expected up there into Wyoming. Got some fog out here. Got some cold temperatures out here in the higher elevations and stuff. So pretty cold out there. East looking pretty quiet. Nothing to worry about there. All right, quick look out in the tropics. We have Lorenzo, which is still there. I was surprised it was still there this morning, but they got this thing kind of fading on out here, moving north at 13, and it's going to fall apart, folks. Not worried about that thing. That thing is sitting out here right there. This is what Lorenzo is. This is the tropical wave we got to watch here. This has got a long way to go, but once it gets over into this position here, maybe something develops there. Our next named storm is Melissa, by the way, and we'll see if anything comes to fruition. We're talking, I don't know, maybe like between the 23rd and 25th before we kind of see anything out of that particular system. So a long way to watch that. Look at what's going on here. Look at the ESANS ensemble model here. As again, let me let this thing loop on through again. This is what's left of Lorenzo there. Not really worried about that. It's this one here that's coming on here just a little bit further south, but it comes into the Caribbean, and then it kind of clusters into this zone. You'll notice the lows that'll just kind of sit there for a little bit, but nothing coming out into the Gulf. Now, the northern Gulf waters are cooling off a bit. It's been kind of cool there, but we'll see if anything comes to. Does this thing move into Central America, or does it something pull it up to the north? And we'll see. We got a long way to watch that right now, but right now the tropics staying quiet. And we got 6 more weeks of hurricane season, and we're done. We're done with that. All right. Let's talk about the Pacific side. We do have something over there to talk about real quick. There is one area of disturbed weather over there, just off the coast. But this one, I'm not anticipating this one. Unlike the other two named storms we had, Raymond, and what was the other? Priscilla, I think was the other one. That got pulled up into the southwest. I'm not anticipating that with this. So right now, it doesn't look like much there right now. Just kind of watching that off the coast, but we'll see. Again, not too concerned about that. All right, let's go talk about the severe weather threat here for today. Going to break this down for you. Again, we got that big low pulling up through the Intermountain region. You got that marginal risk for severe weather here coming through that part of the country right there. Hold on a second. I got to pull up my right map over here so I can talk about it. There we go. Here we go. So again, we're talking about Rapid City down to Cheyenne, Boulder's in this, Denver's in this, Santa Fe. So right through there. Let me clear that out for you real quick. There we go. And that is our area for today. Let's break it down by the categories here for today. We'll look at the tornado risk here. Looks like a 2% there in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico there, a little bit there. But obviously the big threat's going to be the wind. You got that sitting right there, running about 5%. So we're talking winds greater than 60 mile per hour winds in there in that zone. And then hail threat also in the same areas, or maybe up to quarter size. So not looking too bad there for today, but they'll see some severe weather. So here's your day 2. Kind of pulls out here into the plains a little bit. Not bad. General thunderstorm threat here across the northern plains, coming back toward Texas. And then we go to day 3. Then things start to get a little interesting here as this pulls out into Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri. Right now, just a marginal risk. This is for Friday. And wouldn't surprise me if this goes to slight. I think I'm pretty confident we're going to see a slight when I go into day 4. Let me show you the day 4 here. Day 4, this area in here, this would not shock me to be at least a slight risk for severe weather. So Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, the western areas of Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, that area there could see the potential for some thunderstorms. And the tornado risk, it's a little bit there, not overly high, but there is a possibility of a few tornadoes there potentially. But we'll see how it works as we get a little bit closer. We're still about 4 days out here on this one, all right? So that's something to look for. Again, we're getting in that time of year. And I don't think this is going to be the only opportunity. When I show you the European model here in a second, the long range, and again, it's a long range thing. You'll see why looks like that we're going to have a decent active severe weather season by fall standards. And I was kind of going with that when I was doing my winter outlook here locally. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the model data here. Let me switch over to that. Really don't have a lot of excessive rainfall to talk about today, so we'll just kind of switch over to this. So this is your NAM. We're looking at your intermediate model here going out for 84 hours. Again, where all the activity is really out here in the west. So you can see kind of that low kind of moving up here, going up into the Dakotas and moving northward. And then there's going to be a bit of energy that's going to drop down behind this and drop on another low here across portions of Kansas. That's going to set up that severe weather going into Friday and Saturday. So some decent snows across Wyoming moving up there. Here's our storms kind of flaring up here again with its low pulling to northward. That initial energy pulls out. And it's really not looking bad across the country on Friday. So today, all out in the west. East Coast looking pretty good, although we do have a backdoor cold front that's kind of sliding down here. So you see these heights kind of pulling down here. So we got some cool air coming down the eastern half, the Appalachians. And then we're going to have a warmer air there in the middle of the country. So we're still talking about above normal temperatures there in the middle of the country. That seems like a broken record. I've been saying it for like days on end, but it's still there. All right, so rainfall here as we look at this real quick. I'm not sure why that resets every time I click that, but that's what it's been doing lately. But anyway, this is again going out to your 2 o'clock on Friday. East Coast, we're quiet. South Central, quiet. Florida's looking pretty good. Here's your storms lining up there. Again, this is that storm system pulling out of the Rockies into the high plains. Some pretty good rains there across Montana, up to North Dakota, back toward Wyoming. So again, that's our storm path there, but that's basically the only game in town right here for the next couple of days. All right. Now, as we go take a look at the temperature regime here, and I'll turn this back on again. I'm not sure what that's never did that before, but it's doing it this morning. So anyway, here's your Wednesday. Again, look at these temperatures. Nebraska, 81 degrees. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. This is supposed to be mid-October, middle 70s in Iowa here today. Even though these are cooler up here, this is closer to normal. At least up here across the Dakotas in the 40s and 50s this afternoon. That's closer to what it's supposed to be. But this warm up in the middle of the country has been a real pain in the butt. All right, so as I go ahead and go forward on this here and go in for tomorrow morning, we'll take this up till 7. All right, there we go. Look at these temperatures in the 60s. The blue, that's your sub-freezing temperatures. That's your 32 degree or below. But look at that big warm up there in the middle of the country there. Cooler here. We got a wedge coming down this way. So you got a cool air wedge coming down this way going to Thursday and Friday. So look at your high temperatures on Thursday going for tomorrow. It's not about 4 o'clock again. Look at this. 70s punching into South Dakota. It's just unbelievable. There's your cold front right there. Got a lot of 80s here across the south, even into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, seeing some 80-degree temperatures. St. Louis at 80 degrees. A little cool down here in the south. So we definitely got a little loop-de-loop going on right there. And then as we go into your Thursday morning, let's go up to Thursday morning here. There we go. So look at these temperatures still pumping into the 60s going into Minnesota. Here's our cold front right through there. Shut up very nicely. There's our cold front. And then here's our backdoor cold front coming down this way. So, and then very warm here in the middle. So that's what we've got going on going into your Friday morning. All right. Now, let's go take a look at the big picture here. We got that for the next couple of days. We're looking at the latest European 500 millibar height anomaly. Okay, so we're tracking where those disturbances and where those low pressures are going to be setting up. And we're definitely seeing a little more transition to a more progressive pattern. That means we're getting every few days starting to kind of move on through. So this first one coming out, this is the energy coming out of the west. And then you got the dive of energy coming out of Canada that's going to set up that severe weather going into Saturday and Sunday. So this piece of energy back here is diving southward, going to give us a little something to form down this way. That's going into Saturday. That's going to set that severe weather risk there. So that moves on through, and then it swings on out the shore. And then we got another one coming behind it. Here's another backdoor cold front again. Whenever I see this kind of set up here, that means we got cool air coming down the eastern half of the Appalachians once again, and that moves on through. Look at this big, huge storm system out here on the west coast. There's going to be some unbelievable snows I'm going to show you here across the Aleutians and going into British Columbia there. I want to show you that in a second. But that goes on through, and then here comes another drop-off. Here's another one going on there. That's going on. So you got 1, 2. So you get, again, you can see 1, 2, 3. The jet stream's not quite low enough to kind of tap into that Gulf moisture just yet. Hopefully when it starts sinking a little bit further south, we'll get that. Bring some rain to some areas that need it, especially across the south. Look at this big old thing. This is going on the 24th, going into next week. Can you say Omega pattern? Yeah, that's Omega block. I'm seeing a lot of those going on. If that continues going into the winter, that's going to be fun. I'll tell you that. That's going to be real fun to watch. All right, so this goes on. That drops on off. And then here comes this one. This one right here going in toward the end of the month. And this is getting to the end of the month. Again, this is long range, so take it with a grain of salt. But again, you're seeing a very progressive pattern. This would be another potential severe weather, I think, here going in toward the Wednesday the 29th. Now, this is building a low off the coast there at the end of its run. But again, you kind of see the transition. We're definitely making that going in deeper into the fall. It's the westerlies are taking over, a more active storm track. And right now, look at the long range. We've got the severe weather we got coming in this weekend, and then maybe going into another weekend opportunity, and then the end of the month an opportunity. So there's at least 3 different opportunities there for severe weather. Again, we're not talking spring scale stuff, but it's just something to be aware of for the fall. So here we go, the next 7 days. Again, all the game in town is going to be that big storm system here coming in across the east. So we're going to track this slowly. Again, we're watching that stuff come out of the Rockies. That goes north and goes into Canada. So that moves up into Canada, right? And then that energy that comes down out of Canada is going to fire off some storms right there. There it is, going into your Saturday and Saturday afternoon. So that's going to fire up the storms there across Missouri, Arkansas. Again, that's that severe weather as this piece of energy drives down southward here. So this is driving southward. We got tap some moisture in here. We got some decent Cape, not bad, which is energy. Obviously, it's been warm. So we got some decent heat there for those thunderstorms. This pushes off toward the east, and you see the low going into the Great Lakes. Some good rains there on Sunday morning across Michigan, down through Indiana, back into the south as this moves on through. Hopefully it gets out of the way for Talladega. I know we got a race this weekend on Sunday, so hopefully that gets out of the way there, and that moves on out. We got another storm system coming in on the west coast as well. See that one on the west coast coming in this weekend? So that's the other one. This moves on out, and then this is going to have a nice dump of cool air coming in behind this. As this thing swings up into the northeast there, you're going to have a nice cool down there coming on the back side of this thing as this thing plunges on down. We're going to tap some cool air and kind of dive this into the northeast going toward the middle of the week, going into our next Wednesday. And we got some snow, we got a little bit of rain out there across the Four Corners. At least the Four Corners get a chance to dry out. Boy, they've been blasted with enough rain out there for a while. All right, let's look at the rainfall totals here next 7 days. Again, watching that storm system, it's going to be bringing in some of that rain, heavy rains here across the Great Lakes. Some decent rains for the eastern third of the country. We'll take it. Northwest, getting some rains. That next storm system coming in toward Wednesday. California gets to dry out here a little bit. Southwest also drying out a bit. Texas, because of all that moisture from the tropics finally clearing on out. That's good to see there. But this is your 7 day total there across the country. At least we're seeing a little bit there falling. All right. Let's talk about snow. I wanted to talk about, obviously, we added snow here yesterday across California. That's settling down the Four Corners. But I really wanted to pot. I was checking up here into Canada. Look at these things. 44 inches, 32 inches, 50 inches. I mean, that big storm system that I was just showing you, you've seen grain showing up there. You're going off the chart here. that's one thing. Also starting to see the snows building across Alaska, up here across the northern portions of Canada. That's important to watch because you start getting a snowpack down, you start getting the colder air to kind of build up across the area. And eventually, whether it be over from Siberia or North Canada, you got to think of the cold air like a big bowl of water. You're going to take the water, you're going to fill that bowl up, and eventually that bowl is just going to overspill. It's going to drop on down. It's going to happen. So I'm not sure when exactly we're going to get a nice cold shot yet. I'm not seeing that right now. A couple of minor come downs here and there, but not a real true, Arctic plunge. Not seeing that just yet in the long range. All right. So temperature-wise, again, going this weekend. Look at again. You got the warm air here in the country. Here's our cold front. Again, there's our sub 32 degree weather out there in the west. That's going into your Saturday. Let's go into your Sunday. Again, that front begins to move off toward the east. Here's your 2 o'clock temperatures here, pretty mild here across the eastern third of the United States. Again, in the 70s here into New York State. So a little warm up out of that cold front. But again, we're not overly cold. This is not that bad. Really not that bad. Not by October standards, middle of October. So again, kind of cold out in the west. Then we cool it down here. There's a lot of 40s coming behind that system coming in across the area. I even said North Georgia, I think Tuesday morning when I did my local update here. I think Tuesday morning here, we might see some upper 30s into the mountains, mountain locations, just because the depth of the cold air is a little bit thicker than what we've seen in the previous cool airs there. But the sub-freezing temperatures are in the blue out of here. Everything's out in the west. So the west is where the cold air is going to be seasonably cooler there in the east going into next week. And that looks like that holds true here. Look at your Wednesday afternoon high temperatures here. Kind of stop it. We're rebounding back in the 60s and 70s again, middle of the country. It's a broken record. See, keeps going that over and over again. Now, because of all that, again, Climate Prediction Center here, long range, we do have that cold air currently out there in the west, as you saw that blue there going into next week, but even that's going to start to kind of move on out. So we're looking at above normal temperatures here in the east, and we're kind of cold here in the west. This goes from the 20th to the 24th, and then as we go deeper into the month, almost the entire U.S. is looking at above normal temperatures to finish up the month. I think we're going to pay the piper in November. I really do. As that cold air begins to build up there, I think we're going to get a cold shot to come down here probably sometime in early November. That's just my initial kind of gut feeling right now. Nothing on that. But I think November we get a cold shot to come down here. And then looking at above, I don't know if I agree with this above normal precipitation across the south for next week. We got one rain event, and that's it. And I don't see anything else out there for that period. So maybe average. I don't know if I paint that green, but then we go out further, 8th to the 14th here, and then you see dry. We're kind of dry across a big part of the country, a little bit slightly above across the east, and a little active there across the Pacific Northwest. Again, this is from the 22nd through the 28th. So I had to post something on my social media on my local account here to remind folks to beware of some of the trolling going out there. I saw some posts talking about this big Arctic plunge around Halloween and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, please. The models have been consistently here I've been trying to show those big Arctic plunge, and it keeps shifting to the right, shift to the right, shift to the right. We've been getting some cool shots, not bad, but not in your face cold stuff coming just yet. Nothing that I would call a true winter blast, we'll say. Okay, that really would spread a lot of frost and freezing. Now we're in that time of year we should be seeing a lot more of that, but we're not. I'll give you an example here across North Georgia. We should be seeing our first frost and freezes here in the next week in a lot of locations, and we're not going to see it. We're just not. So the temperature's staying above normal there. Hey, good morning, Mick. Edith, good to see you out there. My regulars out there this morning. I appreciate you guys getting your update this morning. And again, you guys have a great week weather-wise, and you folks there in Arkansas, and just be careful out there. Might see a few thunderstorms going into this upcoming weekend. All right, that's y'all's update. Y'all take it easy. Be good, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. You guys have a great day.